All right, welcome back to building our theme together here. We're gonna go ahead and add some JavaScript here and talk about how you can add JavaScript through a theme module. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right. So in our theme, what we can do is we can add JavaScript through our main JavaScript source file, and that's gonna be called the main.js, okay? It's pretty straightforward. The main.js includes a few callbacks that we can work with here, okay? All right, in the base main.js file, we have 3 callbacks that we can work with for using different functions. So we have the AUI ready, we have Liferay portlet ready, and we have Liferay.on, okay? So basically it breaks down simply. The AUI ready is going to be executed after the HTML on the page finishes loading, okay? The Liferay portlet ready is going to be executed after the page portlets have loaded, okay? This particular callback will receive 2 parameters. As you can see here, there's the portlet ID and the node, okay? And then Liferay.on is just going to execute after everything else, including Ajax portlets once they finished loading, okay? So you'll see some of these callbacks in the base themes main.js, okay? And beyond, of course, writing the semantic JavaScript, you do have the ability to take advantage of those JavaScript frameworks that I had mentioned earlier in the earlier videos. So Metal.js, jQuery, and Lodash, okay? Now, in order to do that in the theme, there are some dependencies that you can use, okay? And those dependencies can be found through NPM, okay? So you can actually, for example, if I wanted to use ECMAScript, which works with Metal.js, I would need to make sure that my theme had the Metal DOM, as well as the ECMAScript dependencies, and I can find those through the NPM project. So what we're gonna do for our theme is we're gonna go ahead and just work with a very simple JavaScript example here. We wanna make sure that if we're not signed in, we get the sign-in modal that shows up, and we want it to look a certain way when we are in a responsive mode. So when we're either looking through mobile or through the tablet, okay? So let's go ahead and do that together, okay? So I'm gonna hop back over here to my Liferay site. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up my theme. Okay. So in my theme, I'm still in the images folder from the last video that we did together. Okay, so I'm gonna go back up to the main source folder of my theme. So again, this will be Livingston Fjord theme source, okay? All right, I have my JS folder here, which is currently empty. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my main.js from my exercise source, just like we had done in the last 2 videos, okay? So go ahead and open up the exercise source, open the JS folder, okay? And copy the main.js from the JS folder there. Okay. And then once you've done that, go ahead and open up source and paste the main.js into the JS folder. Okay, again, the typical process here would be for you to go to the build folder, grab the main.js, and bring it into source if you want to modify that. Okay. We're just making things a little bit easier by adding our theme files through the exercise source. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna wanna go ahead and open this up into Visual Studio Code. So I'm gonna open up my Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna go ahead and just close my previous files here. All right, and drag the main.js into my Visual Studio Code editor. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and type some things here as well as add some snippets. So to start, go ahead and click right next to where it says function A. You'll see we're using the AUI.ready callback. We already have Liferay sign-in modal here. Okay, go ahead and hit enter right above the first comment for the snippet. Okay, and we're gonna write some variables together here. So go ahead and do var for variable, okay, body. Set it equal to a.getBody. Here, okay. This will help us to manipulate the body portion of our site pages, okay. For spacing, go ahead and hit enter twice here. And we're also going to set a variable for sign in. Okay, so we're going to type var sign in equals a.1. And then we're going to be grabbing the sign in ID. Okay. Go ahead and do the semicolon here. All right, so this gives us the ability to access, basically set a variable for the body of the page and the sign in ID specifically. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter twice again. Okay. Or rather, I'll just do it once here. And then I'm going to highlight the snippet for 0, 1. Okay. Do LFR here. Okay. And for the first one in the option list here, we have 0, 1 sign in plugin. So go ahead and select that option there and click save. Okay. So this is checking for whether or not someone is signed in. Okay. And it's setting the sign in modal. Okay, so this is giving us a modal that can use the sign in widget. All right, we also want to set an event for this. We want to make sure that if we are accessing the site from mobile or tablet or whatever, that the sign in modal will become the full screen for us. So when I click on sign in, no matter what device I'm looking at, the sign in widget, if you will, is going to come across the entire screen. Okay, and then we can go ahead and sign in. It just gives us a particular user experience. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a variable for the full screen toggle icon. Okay. I'm going to call it just that. Okay. I'm going to set it equal to a.1. All right, and we're going to be grabbing some IDs and classes here. Okay. So I'm going to type in for the first class, full screen navigation. Okay. I'm going to do a little space there and add banner. Okay, so we know the banner ID from that header section. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to go ahead and do the Nav Bar Toggler Class. Okay. All right, so these give us a couple of classes and an ID to work with here. Okay, and we're setting it to the full screen toggle icon variable. Okay. And then we can go ahead and come down here to the second snippet. Type in LFR. Okay, select that second snippet there. All right. Okay, so we're setting an if statement here that gives us an action for clicking. What this will allow us to do then is make sure that if the menu is open, the menu will collapse for us. It's going to close, and then the sign-in modal will take the whole body section of the page. Okay, so it's pretty simple JavaScript, pretty simple DOM manipulation here. It just gives us a good user experience. Okay, so again, if I'm viewing this on mobile, if I'm viewing this on a tablet, okay, and I want to go ahead and sign in, it's going to make sure that everything else is closed, and the only thing in the middle of the screen is going to be my sign-in widget. Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and run a gulp deploy, and we can make sure that this works as expected. All right. So go ahead and save the file. Make sure it's saved. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to my terminal. All right, I'll run a gulp deploy. Okay, nice and easy. And let's go ahead and recap this section for JavaScript. Okay, so like I mentioned, the main source file for JavaScript is going to be our main.js in our theme. Okay, we can add JavaScript elsewhere as well, but when we want to add it into the theme, this is going to be our primary file. Okay, we can do semantic JavaScript, and in many cases, it's actually recommended to do semantic JavaScript. We're not needing to load in any sort of libraries to do that. Okay, but you can use Metal.js, jQuery, and Lodash out of the box. You can create ECMAScript files if you'd like, using some of the Metal.js dependencies as well. Okay. All right, and if you do want to add other JavaScript files, you can actually do that and require them in the main.js as well. So just like we can import in CSS, and just like we can include in FreeMarker, you can use a require call out in order to pull in additional JavaScript files. Okay. All right, so we've added some HTML, some CSS, we've added some JavaScript. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at configuring our theme, and then we'll look at some of the additional options we have for our themes in Liferay to wrap up our theme development.